Hello, fellow rebel capitalists. More good news coming out from none other than the WHO, World Health Organization. Now, I know the media is trying to spin this as you would expect, and you'll see how ridiculous this title is in just a moment. But this goes to show us that the probability, I think, is increasing that the cerveza sickness is kind of in the rear view mirror heading into the spring, maybe the summer of this year. It's obviously you don't eradicate it, but like I've said since way back in November when we had the most recent scariant, is looking at the data, you could come to the conclusion pretty easily that this would put an end to the cerveza sickness as far as it being a pandemic. Now, who knows what these countries will continue to do that are really under the influence of the World Economic Forum. And I think one of the, uh, if we're looking at the glass half full, one of the positive things from this whole ordeal we've dealt with over the last 2 years is it's really showing us which countries are most heavily under the influence of the global elite. And I mean, right off the top of my head, let's look at Germany. Let's look at Austria. Let's look at Australia. Let's look at those types of countries. Obviously, there's certain states here, certain politicians. Oh, Canada. Definitely got to include Canada in there. And then it also shows us what states we want to be in the United States, and then what states we want to avoid, like the plague. No pun intended. So I think that's something that is a positive that came out of all of the negatives that we've had over the past couple years. But let's dive into this article because I think this really sheds light on or gives us additional information on what the probability is that this is in the rear view mirror going into the spring and into the summer. So this is from CNBC. Shoot. Sorry about that. Guys, Josh is telling me I got to do the screen share, which I forgot. Okay, there we go. Back to the CNBC article. The next scariant will be not so scary. So they're trying to spin this as more contagious than the current scariant, which makes sense because for usually if you watch Brett Weinstein, so I don't want to say that this is me talking. This is someone who has their PhD in evolutionary biology. You see that the way these things usually pan out is in order for a scariant to take over the last scariant, it needs to be more transmissive. Makes a lot of sense. That's the way it kind of weeds out or pushes out the last scariant because it transmits at such a high rate that pretty soon, let's just take it to an extreme, say 99% of this people have the recent scariant that transmits very quickly, and therefore there's only 1% that has the prior scariants, and then pretty soon that's gone as well to where the prior scariants just don't exist. So the next scariant could be more contagious, yes. But as Brett Weinstein and his wife Heather point out and have pointed out many, many, many times, is that if something like this evolves, usually there is a trade off, very similar to economics. So nature says, okay, scariant, if you want to be more transmissive, you're going to need to give up something else because you can't have both. And the scariant says, okay, evolution or Darwin or nature or whomever, I want to be more transmissive. So I'll go ahead and give up some of my severity. And so usually, and again, no certainties, only probabilities, but usually as these things play out, they get more and more and more mild, which is pretty much what the WHO is admitting to now. Although when you look at this title, it's like uh, they've got to throw in that it's got to be more contagious. It's just the media, just that last gasp of fear, just to get to get those, to squeeze as much ratings blood out of the turnip as they possibly can before they have to dispose of it and kind of move on to something else. The problem for the media is what's next. Because are you going to go back to talking about Trump? That was your lifeline as far as ratings before. Maybe they move on to a stock market crash. If we get that, that could be a ratings lifeline for some of these media outlets, but we will have to see. Main thing here again, title, next scariant will most likely be more contagious, but will be more mild. So key talking points here. Official Maria, I'm not sure, Van Kerkhove, warned against theories that cerveza sickness will continue to mutate into milder strains that make people less warned against. Okay, the virus will continue to evolve. It settles patterns. Okay, Pfizer and BioNTech on Tuesday started testing the. I can't. Now I'm used to doing the economic videos where I don't have to watch what I say every way. So basically, they started testing a medicine that targets the new scariant. So maybe I'm getting this wrong here. Maybe they're saying that warned against theories that the cerveza sickness will continue to mutate into something more mild. Okay, so usually what that means is this is coming out in the mainstream, or this is in the society consciousness. This is coming to light as far as these facts as to what usually happens. And they, being the WHO, have to come back and say, oh, well, yes, that's kind of true, but continue to be scared for these reasons. That's probably what's going on here in this article. So they say next scariant will rise to world attention, will be more contagious. Okay. But the real question scientists need to answer is whether or not it'll be more deadly. Okay, exactly what I'm saying. So, all right, let's keep going here. Roughly 21. Okay, got it. And I'm trying to go over the parts that will be YouTube unfriendly. So this Van Kerkhove is saying the next scariant of concern will be more fit. And what we mean by that is it will be more transmissible because it will have to overtake what is currently circulating. So this is kind of, you know what? When people tell you shouldn't do your own research or you shouldn't use critical thinking, you should delegate this to the quote unquote professionals. This is a conclusion that any of us could have come to just after thinking about it for like 30 seconds. But yet, what the mainstream media tells us is that we're not worthy to actually have these types of thoughts. We're not worthy to dive into the details and the nuance to this degree. When really, this is child's play. This is not difficult. But for some reason, they want to discourage you to do that, or they don't discourage you from doing that. So then the question becomes why, and I think we all know why. But so exactly the conclusion that you would come to just using basic common sense. I don't think you have to be a doctor to come to that conclusion. The big question is whether or not future scariants will be more or less severe. She warned against buying into theories, and she's probably talking about Brett Weinstein specifically, that the scariant will continue to mutate milder strains. Okay, well, there's no guarantee of that. Right, but but there's no guarantee that the sun will come up tomorrow either. I guess she didn't get my memo, Josh, where I always say it's about probabilities. I guess that one's interesting too for someone who's a health expert, quote unquote, that they wouldn't acknowledge that it's all about probabilities. But okay, we hope that that's the case, but there is no guarantee, and that we can't bank on it. Okay, but again, let's give us the probabilities here. You're the expert. You should know what has historically happened in the past, and you should be communicating that message if you are a so-called expert. So then they go on to say that they're working on a medicine for Omicron. Yeah, my question would be why? That this makes, if you understand this at all, that this is pointless. This is absolutely pointless. And this actually reminds me of something that I wanted to discuss that I think is very important. You look at how these politicians are just so behind the curve with these mandates for areas like Chicago, as an example, or Washington, D.C. We were there just last weekend for the Defeat the Mandate March. And, I couldn't go to a restaurant. I really couldn't leave my hotel room because I didn't have the passport. And you look at the recent scariant cases really spiking, it's going to come straight back down. So you have to say, okay, well, why are they making these policies now? It doesn't make sense at all. And you guys know that you guys know why they're doing it. But I think another reason, it's not just about control, power, it's not just about conditioning, but I think now it's about them being able to say that their policies, the policies that were more draconian, were the ones that eradicated the, let's say, the pandemic. And therefore, moving forward, you guys should give us the authority to make these types of draconian decisions whenever we see fit. The global elite, the politicians, right? So you can imagine in Chicago, as an example, let's say the cases go all the way down to a negligible level. And let's say we fast forward to June or July. And then the mayor, I think her name is Lightfoot or something like that. Then she comes out and says, "Oh, there you go. There you go. It was because of the bold action I took that we got a handle on the cerveza sickness." No, it's not. That was just the natural path that it would have taken regardless of your stupid restrictions. But you see, it's the politicians, they see the writing on the wall. And then they say, okay, well, how can I leverage that? I know that by the summer, the scariant will probably have dissipated. So how can I take advantage of that? Oh, what I can do is come up with these restrictions now. And then when the scariant dissipates, then I can take credit for it. And I think that's a lot of what's going on in Austria and Germany, in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. And then when they back off, they can run a victory lap and say, oh, it was because of me. And then the global elite are just sitting there, clapping their hands and just gleeful from the standpoint of now they've conditioned society to believe that the draconian measures are always good. Therefore, when we get the next crisis, they can use that as leverage. Because, and it goes back to what I'm saying here, is that if you look at the actual data, why are we doing a medicine for this? It really doesn't make any sense, especially when you consider the fact that how many people got it, how transmissible it is, and then the natural immunity involved. It just doesn't make any sense. Other than if you look at it from a standpoint of science and health, it doesn't make any sense. I think I should say that. Okay, I'm just going through this and scanning it. I think that's pretty much the main takeaway here. So we'll go ahead and end it there. I want to get back to talking more about economics. Quite frankly, I'm just sick and tired of talking about the cerveza sickness, although I do think it's extremely important. I think that it's on its way out, and we're going to regain most of the in most of the world. We're going to regain the freedoms and liberties we had back in 2019. Now, I think that's only going to be temporary. But I think that we'll have a bit of a reprieve here until we get to the next crisis that the global elite will try to take advantage of to usurp more power and control. So that said, I'll continue to do these stories, obviously, because this channel is all about freedom and liberty. But I want to focus more so on the free market capitalism component of it and macroeconomics. So you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Always stand up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism. We'll see you in the next video.